Good morning. Thank you to the Chair and members of the Audit, Finance and Administration Committee for the opportunity to address you in regard to the proposed transgender and gender nonconformity protocol. I'm Rabbi Jordan Cohen of Temple Anshe, Shalom, Hamilton's historic Reformed Jewish congregation. And standing with me this morning is Rabbi Lavery, Yisraeli of Beth Jacob Synagogue, Hamilton's conservative Jewish congregation. We wish to speak to you this morning in support of this important and fundamental protocol on behalf of our communities and from the perspective of the imperatives of our Jewish tradition. Throughout the history of Reform and conservative Judaism, our movements have worked tirelessly to fight discrimination and injustice, support equality, and strengthen the rights of minorities and all oppressed people, including members of the LGBTQ+ community. Both of our religious movements welcome and celebrate in our congregations people of all sexual orientations and gender identifications and oppose laws that fail to uphold principles of equality for all. North American culture and society have in general become increasingly accepting of people who are gay, lesbian, and bisexual, and yet too often transgender and gender non-conforming individuals continue to be marginalized and forced to live as second-class citizens. It would go against the integrity of our tradition to allow this discrimination to continue. Our Torah, our sacred scriptures, stress that all human beings are created b'tselem Elohim, in the God's divine image. And our rabbinic tradition strongly emphasizes the importance of kavod habriot, of human dignity for all. It is important to note that Judaism has long recognized that gender identification is not simply a binary equation. Our ancient sages, going back almost 2,000 years, identified 6 different genders, including the Alonit and the Saris, which referred to individuals who were assigned one gender at birth, but came to identify as another as they grew and developed. Our ancient Jewish sages, in their efforts to uphold the commandments and comply with the will of God, were remarkably sophisticated in their recognition of the fluid nature of gender. They engaged in lengthy discussions, as recorded in our rabbinic literature, about how to best accommodate such individuals, all individuals, within the law and social structures of their place and time, granting transgender people the same obligations and privileges of all members of our community. If our communal and spiritual leaders could make such accommodations 2 millennia ago, should we not be following their example today? And that is really the point. Transgender rights are human rights. And therefore, as people of faith and conscience, people with deep roots here in the city of Hamilton, we call upon Hamilton City Council to approve and implement the transgender and gender nonconforming protocol as a reflection of our city's commitment to greater inclusivity of transgender and gender nonconforming people. Much work remains to be done in our society to fully overcome discriminations against members of the LGBTQ+ community. Transgender and gender nonconforming individuals especially experience frequent incidents of hate crimes and harassment and often face discrimination in employment, healthcare, and housing. Simply choosing their preferred pronoun or accessing facilities based on their gender identity without facing others' objections or fearing violence can be a daily challenge. The combined impact of all of these factors has contributed to higher than average poverty, homelessness, and suicide rates amongst transgender people, and this injustice cannot be ignored or tolerated. Let us affirm our commitment to the full equality, inclusion, and acceptance of people of all gender identities and gender expressions. The adoptions of these protocols by the city will go a long way toward making a value statement about who we are as Hamiltonians and the dignity and respect that we accord equally to all members of our community, all accorded the same rights and status under law, all created in the divine image.
I was told I get 2.5 minutes. Is that true?
Madam Clerk, is that okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Honorable friends, Rabbi Hillel Lavery, Yisraeli, Rabbi of Beth Jacob Synagogue on Aberdeen Avenue, a fully inclusive and welcoming community of about 300 families. As a Jew and a rabbi, it is my duty to defend the honor of our holy Torah, known by some of you as the Old Testament, whose words are being misused by some to justify intolerance and hatred of people who only deserve our admiration and protection. 3,328 years ago, my ancestors, the ancient Israelites, witnessed the divine revelation on Mount Sinai and received our most precious gift, the Torah, Morasha Keilat Yaakov, an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. God entrusted Moses and the Israelites with the custodianship over the Torah to teach it and explain it and to pass on this responsibility to the next Israelite generations. We have continued this tradition ever since. The commandment to observe the laws actually instructs us, Jewish people, to observe the Torah as it is taught to us by the rabbis of each and every generation. Al pi haTorah asher yorucha. Behave according to the Torah which they teach you and the law which they tell you. Do not stray from it, neither right nor left. Deuteronomy. From the Torah's own words, we understand that it's the rabbinic interpretation of it which is binding upon us. Fundamentalist literal readings of Jewish scriptures are inherently misrepresentations of God's will. Already in the 1st century CE, the verse in Deuteronomy 20:22, seemingly prohibiting cross-dressing, was explained in rabbinic legal literature, 1st century, to only apply when done explicitly for licentiousness. One who chooses their clothes for reasons of practicality or emotional comfort is not transgressing anything. But furthermore, ancient Jewish tradition recognizes many historical figures who were gender non-conforming, and in today's terminology might be termed transgender, people who were born into a body of one sex, but with a soul of the opposite gender. Joseph, Jacob and Rachel's son, had a female soul. His father responded by giving him a colorful tunic. Dinah, his half-sister, possessed a male soul. She behaved in a societally masculine way, leaving the home to go look at the daughters of the land. When she was raped, her brothers defended her behavior and blamed only the attackers. Michal, daughter of King Saul, possessed a male soul and practiced her religion accordingly. And the list goes on. Tradition commands us to respect the self-declared identity of transgender and gender non-conforming people. Shunning and shaming are grave transgressions of God's will. But this whole theological dissertation should actually be irrelevant. As a Jewish person living in multicultural Hamilton, it offends me to see people trying to influence city policy in the name of their brand of Christianity. Who are they to try to enforce their religion on me? Hamilton is blessed to be multicultural with many non-Christian residents, not just Jews. Separation of religion and state is the only way to govern 21st century society. I respect your right to practice your religion however you please, as long as it doesn't infringe upon the rights of others. But trans rights are human rights. When deciding city policy, your religion and mine must both be irrelevant. The Hamilton Jewish community fully supports the unequivocal rights of transgender and gender non-conforming individuals. We commend the city for introducing this protocol and look forward to working together to ensure the safety and comfort of all residents so that Hamilton will be the place we can all call home. And I'd like to respond, this is off script, but to one of the questions and comments that was made here to a previous speaker, where someone asked, we're talking about trans rights, what about the other people's rights? You don't have to go very far to find a place where there are people who will be uncomfortable to be in the same room with a black person. It's not too long ago here in Hamilton that there were certain neighborhoods where city law prohibited Jews from owning houses there. If a person is uncomfortable with another person sitting beside them, then that person has the responsibility to re-educate themselves and to learn to feel comfortable with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Are there any questions for the presenter? Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. Massarella? Is she here? Is Karen here? Okay.